In this video, I want to share 3 tips for caregivers who find themselves in the role of advocate. And often this is not a role people want to be in or expect to be in, but as a caregiver, sometimes you end up becoming an advocate for your loved one, for a person who's a patient who can't speak for themselves or feels too weak or too vulnerable, or many other reasons feels like they don't want to. There could be a language barrier, and you as the caregiver might be the one speaking up. So 3 tips for you if you find yourself in this position. Number 1 is document. It sounds so simple, and you hear lawyers say it all the time, but documentation really matters. If you want to later go back and cite a conversation, if you want to ensure that you're not relying on memory, which is inherently infallible and we all misremember things, if you want to be able to put something in writing to someone, that can be so powerful rather than having a conversation which maybe doesn't make its way into a chart. A letter, for example, might be more likely to end up in a chart or actually being read by multiple people or transcribed, but the power of putting something in writing often results in it being taken more seriously. So there's many reasons why documentation is actually a very simple yet powerful and effective strategy. The second one is to know your rights. Again, it sounds simple, but it really helps to be able to say, hey, you can't do that. You can't tell me that. For example, I've heard people say, my loved one was told they have to pick 5 beds for long-term care, any 5 beds from this list, which has short wait lists. And often they later find out, no, that's not true. You don't have to pick 5 beds. You're allowed to pick 3 beds from any of the long-term care homes. And maybe there's a reason to pick ones with short wait lists, but sometimes what is conveyed as mandatory or the law isn't always the case. So knowing your rights really can make a difference. I also find it helps when people know their rights because they feel empowered. And when negotiating or trying to be persuasive, the conviction in your voice can make a difference. If you really know the law, you know it to be true, you can be more persuasive in your advocacy as a caregiver. And my third tip is to focus on safety. I have seen time and time again, there's so much for a caregiver to be concerned about, but when it's safety concerns, that tends to catch the attention of healthcare professionals a little bit more than other concerns that perhaps in the grand scheme of things sound more trivial, but safety concerns generally do catch attention because they have potentially serious consequences, including potential liability. So focusing on safety concerns tends to be a helpful and more effective strategy when advocating versus some of the other things that might be less pressing or less likely to result in a lawsuit. So those are 3 tips for caregivers who find themselves in the role of advocate. And if you are doing that work, good on you. It's hard. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable, but it's really important. And as I often say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So advocacy really does make a difference. That's all for this video. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.